association. We're interested to see how it kind of pans out.
Yeah, I think there definitely needs to be an entire division or piece or committee dedicated to health and wellness, including medical and recreational cannabis, as well as like CBD and manufacturing, all of it, right? But I think that the entire piece has to be included.
So much fun stuff going on right now, but like I said, there's not a lot of not just legislation, but people advocating, right? So that'll be helpful.
Well, I think it's a breath of fresh air. I mean, there's just so much going on right now. I think it's finally good to finally focus on something that actually has, I don't know, a purpose and movement without, you know, the left or the right saying what it should be and what it shouldn't be. I think it's going to be a good movement.
Yeah, hopefully the FDA says something important soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
So welcome everybody. Before we get into this too much, into the weeds, and welcome Nate for joining us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Real quick, what do you mean when you say hopefully the FDA will make some changes or release some stuff? What specifically do you feel like needs to be done or is in the process?
Well, I think that for better or worse or whatever your feeling towards the FDA is, they've been dragging their feet on making guidance towards CBD specifically. And I get with medical marijuana or recreational marijuana, that's a little bit different ballgame because just because of the Schedule C of it, you know, the type of drug that it's still classified as. So until, you know, an act of Congress changes that. But a literal act of Congress changed the classification of CBD with hemp, and the FDA still has not ruled on. Haven't ruled on quite a few. Yeah, I had a little hiccup. Sorry, they haven't ruled on quite a few of these little items on where can it be used. And so right now, even though the sale of and the growth of hemp legal. Here, I'm having some hiccups.
I think. Are you on Wi-Fi? Are you on your Wi-Fi cell phone? What are your thoughts, John?
Sometimes people freeze like that. What I might do is I might actually kick him out and then see if he can come back on and see if the signal is stronger. Sometimes when you go live, it will take up a lot of bandwidth. So that's Nate, everybody. Welcome to the show, and that's the rest of the show. So we're gonna head out.
Bye.
See ya. Ryan will be jumping on here in just a minute too, but
I'm excited to hear from him. He's super, super knowledgeable, and believe it or not, I've been trying to get him on for quite a while. I finally roped him in. So anyways, for those of you that aren't familiar with Factory 6, they're a white label service, I believe. I think that's what you call them. Oh, he's back. I hope. Good. I'll let him.
Yeah, hi. Sorry about that. Internet connection.
You're good. You're strong.
Okay, I want to hear back to the FDA and CBD.
Okay, yeah. So even though hemp is federally legal to grow and the FDA has issued it's okay in topicals, they've been dragging their feet. It's now we're on 2 years since the 2018 Farm Bill passed, and they still don't have a rule on ingestibles. Mm-hmm. And so the problem is you have states like California saying, absolutely, you can put it in ingestibles, you can put it in food. Then you have the states like us here in Utah, you can't put it in food, you can only label it as a supplement. And there's just, it's convoluted in terms of what you can and can't do at a federal level. And they're just dragging their feet. I don't know. It could be a handful of reasons, whether it's large pharmaceutical companies that are pushing on them, whether it's a legitimate concern that they haven't voiced that none of us know about, or whatever it is. But I think once the FDA rules on the what we're allowed to do for ingestibles for CBD, I think we'll see a huge uptick in uses of CBD.
I agree. I think that it's going to take a redefining the rules or stipulations around a medicine or a vitamin, up down to the USDA and FDA level, where anything that they've put out previously has said something that is used as a medicine is not a vitamin, right? Well, CBD is the number one ingredient, or the I guess the leading ingredient in the Epidiolex. That's
yeah. So they themselves put themselves in this pickle, right? They did it to themselves. And if you look at it, I don't know. I think that they're going to rule to, in some way, shape, or form, saying, hey, as a whole or partial plant extract, it can be used in these things. And I hope they do that. Epidiolex it's an incredible drug for epilepsy and for seizure disorders. It's pretty specific in what it can do and how it works, and it's like really strong. But it's an insanely, it's a very, very isolated,
it's
CBD.
one use, right? It's very little. I just think it's going to take a change, and I think it's going to take a change of legislation and lobbying, and people at the House that are writing the laws and making the decisions being educated about what they're presenting and what they're doing. And I think it's just going to take a large force of boots on the ground to really build the relationships and educate.
But I think that how's the saying going? The cow's out of the barn, right? It's the FDA won't be able to come down and rule and say, hey, you can't use CBD products in supplements or ingestibles. I think it's going to ultimately come down to how they define what you can use in those things.
Sure.
They might not let single-use isolates in there. You might have to use broad spec or full spec, but I think it's too late for them to try to put the cows back in the barn.
Okay, help me understand something. I heard you just say full spectrum or broad spectrum isolate.
Oh, so.
Or are you saying not isolate, requiring that you use a full spectrum?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. I'm making sure that I was like, wait, what don't I know? Okay.
Yeah. So like Epidiolex is basically a CBD isolate. It's a highly refined CBD isolate. Right. Maybe the FDA will boil it down to, hey, in X amount of products or in these type of products, if you want to label it as a food or a supplement, you can't use just single use or single isolates. You have to use broad spec or full spec.
I have to give you a shout out here real quick, Nate. David said Factory 6 is one of the highest quality CBD producers in Utah. Nate and his team are great to work with.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
We love working with David. Yeah. David's been an advocate for ours in Factory 6 and our innovative products for a while. He does some cool stuff out of the Asian markets too. So.
It's very cool. And then what's wrong with CBD following the supplements path of approval? I think it's good. I just think that the people making the rules are stuck in a pickle.
Yes. So I don't think there's a problem with using it as a supplement. The only difficult part that I see is if it is limited to where you can't put it into foods. Yeah.
Sure.
Because there's so many things that hemp extract and CBD specifically works phenomenally in foods. So at Factory 6, we've developed an instant brownie mix. Like the brownie mix that you put in a cupcake, or the cupcake that you put in a coffee cup and microwave. We've developed a cool little brownie mix that you can microwave like that with CBD in it, and it's phenomenal. But we can't sell it here in Utah, and legally the FDA doesn't allow you to sell that either. So, yeah, stuff like that. Yeah.
I'd be interested. So I was going to ask you how it really affects your business, like how the rules and regulations, and tell me more about your business, I guess, before we dive into how some of these legislative changes really impact you specifically or your type of business.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to clear up, I'm not a legal expert. I'm on the we play in the legal arena just because we have to in this market. But I'm not a legal expert. And so I just have to do that disclaimer. So let's talk a little bit about Factory 6, because we'll get into that. I mentioned the brownie mix that we made. And so Factory 6 is a white label CBD and contract manufacturing CBD manufacturer. We do the easiest way to say, we probably should backtrack a little bit to who we are, where we started, how we got to this point. It's a fun story, and I'm not just saying that because it's my story, but it really is a fun story. There are 4 of us as owners here at Factory 6, and we've been working in and around each other for pretty close to 10 years, and we all have about 20 years of nutritional supplement industry experience. Primarily directed in the direct sales market, both direct to consumer and network marketing. It's Utah. That's a lot of our backgrounds. We understand that pretty well here. So we've all been working around together. We've started a couple companies. We are absolutely serial entrepreneurs. We started a company called Six Nutrition almost 10 years ago when we made a men's multivitamin, and that product kind of popped off. It was a product that we made for ourselves because we couldn't find a men's multivitamin that we liked and that we wanted to use. So we built it and we started selling it. And we had a lot of people come to us because of our connection in the network marketing industry that asked us to, hey, can I white label this? Can you make this product for me? Because it was good like that. And that kind of introduced us to the whole idea of white label and contract manufacturing and whatnot. It was, we hadn't been around it that much before. Fast forward a couple companies, and a couple years later, we started Factory 6 after having sold one of our other companies, because we wanted something that was fun. We wanted to do something that was cool, and we love wearing different hats as entrepreneurs. So we started Factory 6 as a branding and marketing company that could do product formulations and products as well. We did, everything from like protein shakes, of course, the vitamins, because we started that off, powdered drink mixes, fun stuff. And we started getting asked by a bunch of people what we could do in CBD. And this was probably mid 2017. And at that time, it was pretty much just tinctures. We can do tinctures for you, and maybe vapes, right? By mid 2018, we saw enough kind of uptick in it that we were like, hey, you know what? We've got to drop everything else we're doing. So we dropped all of our marketing clients. We dropped all of our branding clients. No more websites, no more design. And we switched and pivoted to 100% pure, just 100% CBD product manufacturing, both for white label and contract manufacturing. And it was a gamble. I mean, that was before the 2018 Farm Bill, so it was a gamble for us. But ultimately, it's paid off. And fast forward to where we are now, and it's been a lot of fun. We've done some really innovative things. We've taken our approach to how we build products from our experience, and so ultimately, every product that we make that we want to bring to market, unless it's a very specific formula that a client brings us to make, it's the number one thing. The thing it has to have is experience first. It has to taste good, or have a good, a real easily ingestible, or if it's a topical, it has to be enjoyable. And then the second thing is it has to be effective with that experience. So that has to, anyway. And so all of our products have that, whether it's the liquid shots that we're doing in a 2-ounce, like 5-hour energy shot, quick tab, our powder stick mixes, even our tinctures. Being in the CBD industry, you guys have all had tinctures that taste like crap, right? Made from CBD that at best smells like hot cat piss.
This is funny because I actually opened a bottle that Ryan and I got at an event last year. Yeah. And I opened it the other day, and it's chunky.
What? No.
I was gonna bring it. Bye, Ryan. Oh, there you are. I lost you. Anyway.
It's crazy what people put out there, and they'll put their name on.
It's disgusting. It was disgusting. I opened it and I was like, what? now at least I know what I'm looking at. Like when we talk snake oil.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that as a company, we knew we could do better. When we got into this, early, late 2017, early 2018, the first time we went to buy a kilo of distillate for our tinctures, it was sketchy. It was so, we drove to Denver. We had, it was like $15,000 in cash in a Wendy's parking lot in Denver to give this guy, for him to give us a mason jar of CBD distillate. And we're like, we can do better. Like we can do this better.
We laugh, but that's really still how some business is done, and not because of fault of the business owner. The industry drives some of that. Like it just
Absolutely.
the lack of,
For sure.
like banking, the lack of availability for banking drives a cash industry.
Yeah. Ryan's deep into that.
Yeah.
He understands it intimately. Yeah. And how many manufacturers around here and retail locations have had to switch banks multiple times because they've gotten shut down for playing in hemp. So yeah, I absolutely, there's a lot of fun stuff that's going on there for sure.
Well, even the other day we were talking.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
Somebody says, well, so-and-so got shut down because they ended up taking cannabis. They were actually dealing in cannabis. And I was like, yeah, well, you don't really have to deal with anything in cannabis or hemp. If your name in your business says that, that's where you're at. Specifically, we don't have a specific interest in a farm or in a product, or we just service the industry. That's an issue.
And we've been really fortunate. It wasn't designed this way, but when because we started as a product and branding and marketing company, all of our legal documents, all of our first bank accounts, everything was set up as that. And so the transition, we didn't have to worry about it. We don't, our legal entity doesn't say CBD or hemp or anything in it. And so we've been very fortunate that way.
That's awesome. Ryan, hi. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry I was late. I was getting my brakes done on my vehicle and was just paying at the top of the hour. So
that's okay.
Sorry I was a little late, but
no worries.
But I'm good.
Very good. I like
good. So something interesting last night. So Mr. Chris Fontes hits me up last night, and I sent you a text. He said, hey, can you get to the city council meeting? They are discussing bringing a dispensary into Heber City. And unfortunately, I was at my boys' soccer game, so I couldn't. So obviously, I hit up John and Mandy, and it was a little too short. But then he said, you know what? They were just, it's like the beginning stages of it. Somebody was at the meeting that wants to put in a dispensary. And so it was a brief public commentary on it. And the councilman just basically asked, is there a dispensary currently in Heber City? And they said no. And they basically said, okay. So, but at least that conversation is starting. So
that's
for
good
Utah
news.
and the industry, I think it is good that it's starting to get into these smaller communities. So I think that's a good thing for us.
I saw
and hopefully it keeps going that direction, spreading across the state. So that's kind of an update on some Utah stuff going on. That was fun.
I saw an article put out this morning by Salt Lake City that they're servicing vernal and rural communities also, that whether one of the prescribing, whether the nurse practitioners or physicians that are going out and prescribing, or whether they're opening, I believe they're opening a dispensary out there. I'll have to look, but I love to see our rural communities serviced, have more access to different solutions. Anything from CBD to cannabis.
It's
medical.
It'll be fun to see how this over the next year or so, how it kind of trickles down, because you've got all sorts of really cool, innovative products in CBD that we would love to be able to take to dispensaries and into the THC market, the medical market, but just because of all the legal hiccups and whatnot, the limited number of medical cards, so the limited number of people that we can sell to, customers that are potential in the state of Utah. It'd be interesting to see how not just dispensary owners and dispensaries in general help adopt that, but as the Department of Agriculture, how they're able to lay that, like, and roll that out for other people. Some fun stuff happening in that space. So.
I just saw Tana just posted. I don't know if you saw that, Ryan. It's Brock's Clinic. They're wanting to put a cannabis clinic out there to service the area. So not actually a dispensary, but a clinic where they put their medical cards.
And I apologize, I couldn't hear anything. Could you guys actually hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Because I couldn't hear anybody after that. And I thought, oh, well, maybe they can't hear me. So I jumped on my other computer.
No,
Technical
you're
problems.
Good.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That's good to know that Brock's there.
So Nate, tell me about a customer's experience, or go ahead and, sorry, we keep swirling.
No, this is great. Like, I love just having the conversation. It's fun like that. So we mentioned a little bit about how we got to this point at Factory 6, told the history of what we are and what we do and how we do it. But if we take a step back and we look at what is the core business that Factory 6 does, what we do, it probably is broken down into two categories. Custom manufacturing, and that's where larger companies will come to us, or we'll be working with them, and we'll do large, full, top to bottom runs. We consider ourselves a full solution manufacturer.
When you say large, what is large? Like, what's a number of tinctures at the end, or
Yeah, so I would say anything 5 to 10,000 units, 5 to 10,000 tinctures or more is probably starts getting into large. We definitely skew lower when it comes to minimum order quantities, mostly because the cost of cannabis, the cost of CBD is pretty high still. So we will do most of our products. We can do a custom or semi-custom run for 1,000 units or so. Okay. So somebody could come to us and want maybe a custom flavor, to a certain degree, a custom bottle or custom packaging, and we can do those typically at about 1,000 units or fewer. But then our other side of the business is a white label company, and so Factory 6, you can go to factory6cbd.com. And you can hop on, and you can, right now, you could buy a sample kit, or any one of our products is a single one-time purchase to try them out. And you can see how we do tinctures, everything from full spec to broad spec to an isolate-based tincture. We have quick tabs, we have topicals, lotions, all sorts of really cool stuff in which you can buy as few as 50 units, and we'll put your label on that product. Recently, probably in the last few months, we got an in-house printer, so we can print. We don't have to do full custom print runs. We don't have to go into the local print houses and do 1,000 labels at a time. We can do, technically we can do one label at a time. It's going to cost you the same as doing 200 labels, but we could do one label of a product if you wanted. If you wanted a CBD collective tincture, we could do a CBD collective for you guys. And all of our products have the full COA. They have not just potency from third-party potency, but we do the full COA with heavy metals, pesticides, microbials, and then so when you get your products, it's quality. It's not just done in some guy's garage in his bathtub mixed up. So.
Hey, so Nate, what's a typical turnaround time? I'm just curious. If somebody comes to you, and let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
If somebody comes to you saying, "Hey, I want to have you help me formulate a new product."
Yeah.
what's usually the timeline on? And I know there's a lot of variables, but if it's a product you guys already have that they just want to white label, I know that's different. But I'm just curious what a average turnaround time might be for somebody that might want to come in.
Yeah, that's a great question, because we do get that a lot. We get the question of, hey, I like this label. There's a local brand that's pretty active in the CBD community that we make their tinctures for, and they have a custom bottle. They use a black matte bottle, where everybody else that we do, white label is an amber glass bottle. Something like that, where I can buy that bottle and have it shipped domestically. I don't have to buy it from China. We ask first time 6 to 8 weeks. Second time, second order 4 to 6 weeks. That can be, we can minimize that in certain situations. But if there's any R&D that has to go into it, so maybe we have stick pack pouches, like drink stick pack pouches, so you can buy them in a bag, a gusseted bag. That inside them, they have the stick packs in there, right? You tear it, pour it in water. If we have to do a new flavor, a new flavor is going to take a couple weeks of R&D on top of the 6 to 8 weeks of the first manufacturing run. Does that give you a pretty good idea?
And then, do you guys also drop ship, or do you just basically, once they get the product, you send it out to them? Do you guys have a drop shipping service?
Yeah, so we don't do that right now. It's something that we've talked about doing, but it is one of those things that we want to focus strictly on CBD products and being the premier CBD manufacturer in the country. So because of that, we've partnered with a couple different third-party logistics companies that will do the drop shipping for customers. There are really solid options here in the state of Utah that service the whole country, and some of them even will service international clients. So based off of what your products are, we can recommend somebody that will be good for you.
I think it's funny you just said what you did.
I think that's
Go ahead, Ryan.
okay. I was going to say, I think that's huge though, Nate, because there's a lot of people that want to get into the entrepreneurial space. They want to get into the industry. They want to go online and sell, but they don't necessarily feel like they have the infrastructure. Maybe they're just working out of their home. They want to do a product, but they don't necessarily have the space or the infrastructure to be shipping out products. And I know if it's just a few here and there, it's not a big deal. But if they get an order, let's say over a weekend, and they're out camping, they're not going to see it until maybe Monday or maybe even Monday afternoon, right?
If they want to take a vacation,
already in the system, it's already in route to be shipped out. So it can just save somebody a lot of time. And when we talk about experience, certainly shipping timeframes and fulfillment like that is a huge part of that experience. How fast can I get the product in their hands and deliver something of quality?
Absolutely, and that's why the white label program works so well. It takes that, Tim Ferriss in 2008 or whatever, when he wrote 4-Hour Workweek, was a huge advocate for that model. And so that's exactly the idea that we want to help people with. You can take a very small investment and buy, 100 or 50 tinctures of a product, throw it up on a website, and start taking orders immediately and not have to worry about doing anything.
Yeah. And I'm curious too with R&D, if somebody, and let's just take the drink mix, for example. To me, and I'll be honest, I've tried a lot of the products with all these different multi-level companies, all the different juices, and some of them are really hard to put down for me. Now, I'm kind of a sensitive taste person, right? Yeah. I don't like really, really strong taste.
Yeah.
And so when I drink something that's got that really strong taste, I don't like it personally. And there's even some tinctures that I've tried that, being new to the cannabis space, to be honest, and trying it, it tastes too much like cannabis. And I actually needed, let's call it a warm-up period before I could actually put that in my mouth and not just want to dry heave, you know? And so for me, R&D is very important in getting a taste that isn't strong like that. I mean, how much testing do you guys actually go around the office and say, okay, we've got a new taste, let's all taste it and let's scale it on a 1 to 10? I mean, how does that work?
That is a fantastic question for a couple reasons. There are some very key components to building a product that help, and if you do it right from the beginning, you'll get, you know, how they say quality in, quality out, right? There's a flip side of that that's maybe a little vulgar. So we start with quality ingredients going in. You know, I feel like Papa John's up here, you know, quality ingredients. But it makes a big difference. So everything from I've had a couple people pop on the comments asking if we take from flower all the way through. And so ultimately we start with crude CBD. I don't do any extracting myself, but I do distill it here. So, and the reason we do that is early on when we started, we found the differentiation between distillates was huge, from the strain of cannabis that was used, how it was harvested, how it was extracted, in the distillation, how they separated terpenes or not. And you would end up with, even from the same lot of, you know, the same farm, you could get huge variations in the distillate that we would use. And because most of our products are ingestibles, we saw swings in the flavor profile of those. So we buy crude and we vet farms and extractors highly, not just on potency and cleanliness, but also on how consistent their product is and how I can convert that into an ingestible product. And I use this term, and it's probably not the greatest, but if it smells and tastes like hot cat piss, I'm not going to buy from you again. Like I'll vet you and I'll see if it works, and I'll trade it. And it doesn't matter. It could be, you know, it could be a beautiful cannabinoid profile, but if it tastes bad, no one's going to come back to it. So to your question, kind of going back into it, we vet our suppliers of cannabis very heavily up front, so that as it comes through, we know it's going to be a decent, a good flavor profile on the back end. And then on the second part of that, there are a lot of little nuances between bitter blockers and flavor combinations that you can do to highlight or minimize the cannabis flavor. We have a flavor scientist that is on retainer with us, and she's, in my opinion, one of the best in the world right now. She's got like 30 years of industry experience. She's worked for Monster Energy, Pepsi. She did the Capri Suns. She's done stuff for Nestle. And right now, there are a handful of CBD drinks that are in the market. And she's worked directly with us to help formulate those and provide the water-soluble CBD for those products. And so having somebody like that on board helps a ton as well.
Did you see the question on products, water-soluble and vapables? Do you do both of those?
Yes. Yeah. So we do water-soluble and vapables. Water-soluble is a big push for us. We 100% believe that there's a huge future in ingestible, especially with beverage. Beverage is going to be a solid market. And so, yeah, we've put a huge push into water soluble. Now with vapables, we definitely do vapables. It's not our forte. There are a handful of companies that's what they focus on. And most vape shops like doing kind of their own thing. It's just not one that we're not trying to stand out in that market. But yeah, we do them. in the flavors we can do well.
It's been a hard market to break into with all of the political pushback from the vaping problems from bad product being put in the vape carts.
And then one of the biggest reasons people like Vapables, it's fairly discreet, depending on the type of vape pen that you have, right? You're not blowing huge puffs of vape like a typical
flower.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also because of the onset. It's a fast onset with vaping, and we have our quick tabs where they are sublingual melt tablets, the oral dissolved tablets. Those have an onset that is just barely longer than vape, and so it's a healthier alternative in our opinion. Doing that, and it's also dosable. You know that this quick tab has 10 milligrams of CBD or 30 milligrams. So when I put it on my tongue and it dissolves, that's what I'm getting, as opposed to with a vape. How long is the draw? How hard do you draw? Stuff like that. So
how high is the temperature that controls how much you're getting or how fast it burns, or there's a lot of variables. Yeah. Real quick, we have another question from David that I thought was really interesting. Nate, what's the increase of popularity of hemp flower? Are you seeing with the increase of popularity of hemp flower, are you seeing an increase in ACDC flavor profile?
Yeah, so ACDC, we have a vape flavor that uses ACDC terpenes. It's a very solid and very what you would expect a cannabis terpene profile to have. I don't know if I've seen an increase in the demand for that flavor in particular. I would say an increase in acceptance and the adoption of cannabis terpenes in general. Just like Ryan, you said earlier, you've had a warm-up period now, getting into kind of being okay with a little bit of the cannabis flavor and smell in there. And I would say that is a part of it for sure. People are getting more accustomed to the smell and flavor.
Yeah. Nate, I wanted to actually go back and highlight something that you had said earlier that I actually feel is somewhat important.
Yeah.
Because you had made mention that you guys are able to get people started with lower quantities.
Yes.
And that is not normal for a lot of manufacturers. And the reason I think that's important is in the marketing realm, you may need or you may want to test a couple products to see how they actually perform in the market before you go full steam in pushing that product out, right? Yeah. You don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a product that's just going to be a flop.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is I can produce, 1,000 units at a time. So now I can create a marketing campaign on 1,000 units and I can test that. Or maybe I've got a couple ideas or a couple different flavors that I want to test out to see how it responds. Well, if I'm looking at my cash flows of business, especially as a startup, I don't know exactly what my audience is going to want and what they are really going to like, right? So it's hard for me to forecast what my sales are going to be, but I know I want to do this. And so if I can start with a limited quantity like that, do my marketing out and see what the results are, and even go to some shows or some events and let people taste test for me. Now I can start to quantify this data and then say, okay, this is what I've come to the conclusion with. These are the flavors that people like. Now I'm ready to go and buy 10,000 units, 50,000 units. But to not have to start with that, Nate, to me, that's a huge selling point of Factory 6. I don't know a lot of people that are willing to do quantities that low, to be honest.
Yeah, and part of that is because of the way that we're built. We're built as a CBD specific company, right? If you go to almost any other manufacturer in Utah, CBD is a very small portion of the stuff that they're doing. If they're making essential oils and they're filling essential oils for one of the large network marketing companies in the state, they don't give a crap about your 4,000 to 10,000 unit tincture. They're not going to spend the time to do that. Whereas we know that if we can focus on getting a solid win for you at the entry level, you'll be able to turn around and sell more, and we'll be able to work with you at the 10,000 to 50,000 unit level. But yeah, you're spot on, Ryan. There's a book that I read maybe 10 years ago, the $100 Startup, Ryan Smith, maybe is his last, Ryan, I don't know, anyway. And he has that exact same idea. He says, hey, what can you beg, borrow, or steal? How do you get feedback immediately, shorten the feedback loop, and get out into the market? And so at Factory 6, we can do that for you really quickly. You can, our Aqua Blend sachets, you could go out and you could take how they currently are and buy a few hundred of them and share them with your friends and family, do a marketing campaign around it. And the whole thing could be labeled or feel kind of guerrilla test. We could even help you do stickers on them that make it feel like a lab sample that you're giving out to people. And so it feels like you're a $1 million company giving out samples when you're, some guy in your mom's basement, maybe.
I also look at it, and I've seen this from a lot of people, is the market and the price of crude or distillate has changed drastically over the last couple of years. Yeah. So I've had a lot of people reach out that say, hey, I bought all these tinctures. I bought 1,000 tinctures for $50 each, my cost. And they're now selling on the market for $50 retail. Yeah. I'm upside down and can't even get rid of my product because he over purchased, where technology, quality, cost, supply has completely changed. I mean, from one harvest to the next, let alone 1 year to the next.
Yeah, we saw a huge price drop in isolate the end of last year, early this year, and across the board, we had price adjustments in our white label because of that. So yeah, absolutely, you don't have to buy 100,000 of them. It's funny, some of our big clients that order, their orders are sometimes between 30 to 50,000 tinctures at a time. We've started working with them instead of saying, hey, instead of buying 50,000 every quarter, let's go to a monthly delivery of 15,000. And so you're not worrying about the overhead as much. Our cost in the cost difference of when you're buying 15,000 to 50,000 for cash flow perspectives it's a huge benefit to them.
Where do you see the price going for, take for instance, isolate? You saw that price drop. Do you foresee that's going to continue to happen over the next year? Do you think it's going to stabilize?
Oh man, I don't know. Like, I don't know how much lower it can go. Yeah,
we all want to know.
I really don't know how much lower it can go. I think as we continue to evolve as a market, the smaller extractors, the smaller labs that are doing this, they're going to get squeezed out. Unless you're doing huge runs of this, it's going to be difficult to play in the space unless you find a niche. Find a niche, be good at something like that, and you'll be fine. But that's one of the other reasons that we see ourselves as we're really trying to get ahead of everybody and be professional and have the quality about it, because like we were talking about earlier, there are people that are mixing this stuff up in their garage, in a bathtub, and those people will get squeezed out.
There have to be regulations in place, right? And something that's impressed me, and I know a lot of product that is made by your location, by Factory 6, and I didn't know they've been successful business people, and come to find out they have some of your line, either a custom product that you guys have helped develop or a white label service.
Yeah.
equally as much, your team has been fascinating, and in the sense of always available to answer questions, very open for face-to-face conversations, and following the rules, certifications. We talk a lot about elevating the standard and rubbing shoulders with people that are doing it right, and your facility is doing it right. I've been impressed also. I've seen your facility and I've watched it grow even over this short period of time, and it's mind-blowing just how much is happening, right? As I've walked through the different areas that are sanitary, and a different one may have storage. And anyways, it's a real business, and I admire it. I guess here I open up, I don't know what availability is, but if those of you that are looking to get into it and really see the difference in a well-run facility, I'm impressed by your organization. So
thank you. Yeah, we've got some cool stuff happening right now. We are growing a ton. But yeah, if there's anybody local that wants to come down and see what we're doing, even though yes, we still are in a pandemic, we're trying to be as safe as possible in this. We can, and we are allowing tours. So if you want to come down, reach out. We can set up a tour. You can see what we've got going on. We show you around and see how we can help make products for you.
I love it.
I know I'd certainly be interested in just a tour. I think it's fascinating to me to see how it's all done.
Yeah, we've got some fun stuff. I mean, depending on when you come down here, we could be doing stick packs. We could be doing tinctures. We might be doing liquid. What's that?
Suppositories.
Yeah, we might do suppositories. I'm telling you, that is
it's real.
It's a. When somebody first asked me if we do suppositories, I was like, no, why? Why would you do that? Why? And then I started digging into it and looking into what the experience that people are having on those, and it's mind blowing. It is mind blowing how effective they are because of the CB1 and CB2 receptors in the gut and the direct absorption of it. Yeah, it's
interesting.
Yeah.
That's what they were making last time I was down there. Yeah. So I was like, you're doing what? Like, here's drink packets and here's suppositories.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So Tracy has a couple questions, and I don't have the ability to pull it up, but her first one is, what are a few of the top terpene strains that you're seeing? Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I could say that there are a top profile of them or flavors. Where David mentioned ACDC, I think that one of the reasons that we went with that one and we saw that it was one of my favorites, and so I recommended it, and we that's why we started using it. I think that, yeah, I don't know if I don't know if I could say that there's any, that I would know what those top ones are. If you start breaking them into the individual terpenes, it all breaks down to the top 3 or 4: beta-caryophyllene, myrcene, pinene. If you start breaking them down into the individual terpenes, but as a flavor profile, I don't know if I would say that. And then she said, what type of extraction is the highest quality of crude?
Oh, this one's going to get touchy.
Yeah. I would say scientifically, it doesn't matter.
Depends on what you're looking for.
Agree.
Right.
Yeah. And so if you're looking for, ultimately, the big thing that we hear right now is ethanol or CO2. You don't hear a lot of people talking about butane or other extraction like that. There are some really cool water extractions that are happening, but they're not common enough yet to really spend a lot of time on them. It's really an ethanol versus CO2 debate. From a business standpoint, long term, CO2 is typically cheaper unless you have a really good ability to recover your ethanol, and not everybody's doing that. Up front, ethanol is cheaper to start with because the equipment's way cheaper. In terms of terpene profile, they're both going to beat the crap out of your terpenes. Those are both horrible for terpene profile. And then when you look at it from a, hey, but aren't you going to have ethanol and solvents left in your crude? That's a question that ultimately, either way, you have to, because the process of extracting, if you extract in CO2, you still have to winterize it, which means putting it in ethanol, freezing it, letting it separate, and then you winterize it. So I don't think that I have a preference either way. To me, it's the consistency over the type of extraction. So.
So this is a topic I'm super interested in because, again, there's so many. I could go on forever. Yeah. I'm really passionate about the volatile compounds that are lost in a lot of extraction, that are used for rubbers and sugars and yeasts, and that are just barely spoken about, right? We're just not talking about them. There's very little R&D that's open, and at least not in the United States. I know Israel's way ahead of us. Canada's way ahead of us. But with that being said, what are some things? I know your consumer market is probably leaning, or what I've heard, I'll ask you, is your consumer market leaning more towards a full spectrum or an isolate on what they want in the product?
That's a great question, because what we're seeing is anybody that has an online presence is mostly leaning towards full spectrum. But anybody retail is leaning towards a broad spectrum isolate. Anything tea-free. Retailers are very, very leery of putting anything with any THC content in on the shelves. And so depending on the distribution model that our customers have, it's split that way. But one of the things that we've done, and this has been very intentional, is all of our products we build and we prep for if regulation forces us to move, or the CBD as a big picture, to go from 2 isolates or away from isolates or only broad or only full, we've prepped all of our formulations to pivot for those. And it's been a lot of work up front for that, but we can now guarantee when somebody comes to us and says, hey, I love your quick tabs, but our quick tabs primarily use isolate because it's got a better flavor profile. They say, hey, if the FDA comes back and says, hey, isolates can only be, you can't use isolates in ingestibles or whatever, we can pivot to a broad spec or a full spec based on those regulations. So.
Nice. Very smart. Because just like you've probably experienced, it's you're at the mercy of the industry in the sense of
absolutely
regulations and changes and eliminating risk. And what's some advice you have for people trying to get into or looking to get into the industry or into the retail space with a CBD product?
Ooh, yeah. I think the first advice I would say, stepping out of the CBD, my CBD role and president of Factory 6, putting on my entrepreneur hat, is just go for it. Jump in with both feet. Test the market. Like Ryan said earlier, like it's not expensive to test this stuff out. You don't have to have $250,000 in inventory and advertising budget. Test it out. Get some product and see what you can bootstrap to it, right? So that would be my first advice. Again, it's more of an entrepreneurial style. Now, looking at this from a little bit more of from a CBD perspective, is you almost have to have a tincture. So in your line, get a tincture. It's not the best delivery system. I think it's a horrible delivery system in my personal opinion. But for whatever reason, it says credibility. It adds credibility to your line by having a tincture. People think, oh, these guys know what they're doing by having a tincture.
Really?
But then I would say to have that as a secondary product to something that you can have a little bit more fun with. It's gonna be a little bit more eye-catching.
Very cool. I guess I wouldn't have thought about that. So I appreciate the input on the tincture, because I'm very much a texture person, and the oil under my tongue or in my mouth, or even the water solubles that we've tried at dozens of shows we've been to, it's not really my thing. But
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting. So
and that's a good thing, because there's all the different ways that you can take it. Some people like to smoke it or vape it. Personally, I'm a tincture guy. Gel capsules are fine. You can't taste anything on them, but
I need a good skincare.
I've found my way of consuming it.
Good. I've got a question. When we talk about product that's on the market, I kind of want to put into perspective how far a kilo of isolate goes. If when we're talking about available product on the market, or how much isolate comes from a field of, from biomass or from flower, or however it's extracted or processed. Because a kilo goes a really long ways. It makes a lot of tinctures.
That's right? 1 million milligrams. That's 1 million milligrams of CBD. And when your average dose is 20 to 30, I think 20 is probably a good average on that. That's, what's that? So that's
it's 100,000, 1,000 milligram tinctures.
Yeah. So if you think about it there's so many ways to break it down, but it's so many servings. If you're doing 1,000 milligram tincture in a bottle, it's 1,000 of those tinctures, right? Like I said, if it's our oral Zolp tablets, our quick tabs at 10 milligrams, it's 100,000 of those tablets. That's a lot of servings, however you break it down.
Gotcha. It's a lot of product. And so I think people understanding that, we're able to extract a lot of CBD, either full spectrum or broad spectrum or isolate out of the plant. And so knowing what the price market does as more people are growing and the price margins become smaller because the demand becomes less as more people are growing, right? And so I think it's really catching up or starting to catch up. But as we get a lot of these people out there that are wanting to grow because it's the, green rush, really realizing how much product you're getting or how much product has to be sold for a kilo of isolate or 600 kilos of isolate. When you're moving 600 or 6,000 kilos of something, it's a big order.
It's definitely a lot. And I think what we'll see is, I think Brian asked a question or asked about where do we see the market going with that. Mm-hmm. And until the FDA makes a call on allowing ingestibles, topicals are going to be the only thing that you'll really, really see in retail stores. CVS and Walgreens have topicals in their stores right now, but you won't see it in mass market, Target, Walmart, stuff like that, until there's a little bit more clarity on that. As soon as that happens, I think that there'll be another bump in demand. But right now, everybody, in the 2019 harvest, there was way more biomass available than what was needed, because everybody was thinking in December of last year the FDA was going to make a ruling about it, and they just never did. And so people are still sitting on biomass.
Well, I think Chris said it earlier when we were talking to him about, until the FDA makes those changes and some of these big companies start to put CBD isolate or CBD in their, products like Coke and Pepsi or Kellogg's, any of these large Nestle's, we have an influx of product sitting on the market right now because we grew it and we produced it, and now we just don't have the consumer market right now. Yeah. So it'll be interesting, and I'm with you. I think that it's almost like we're stuck or plateaued, and eventually it'll take back off. And I don't think that we've hit the peak of the CBD market by any means. There's a large sum of people that are not consuming or are not openly consuming.
And I'm excited for it. There's a lot of cool stuff that's going to happen. I'm definitely excited for it. There's tons of growth.
So tell me real quick, something that you see that's happening that may not be related to your business, but in the hemp and cannabis that may excite you, or that may be real opportunity for people to explore.
I think one of my things, or one of the things I'm most excited about just locally, is the stuff that's going on in the medical field with THC and here in Utah. There's a lot of acceptance that is happening. And you guys have had Mike Jones. He always goes by Canada Daddy. You've had him on here before. He's very active in the community. We're very fortunate to have him here in the Factory 6 family, and he's a huge advocate for it. I think that the stuff that's happening culturally in Utah is huge, and I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited to hear that. I'm excited to hear the good vibes about the culture or you recognize those good vibes. Yeah. When you see Mike, give him a shout out. Tell him hello.
Yeah, he's just been popping in and around. I've seen him a few times during the meeting. So
oh, good. Well, tell him hello.
He should have popped in and said hi.
I'll let him know if he stops by. But yeah, for sure. Thanks, guys.
Well, awesome. Anything else, Ryan or John? Nate?
No, I appreciate Nate, you spending an hour with us and taking some of the time out of your day to be with us today. We've had a lot of people on Facebook. You've probably seen it. Just say how much they love Factory 6 and what a great team you have. And so just a quick shout out that we know you guys are awesome. So we're glad to have you in our neighborhood.
Yeah, we're excited to be here.
I wanted to real quick, David Rockwood had made another comment about the value of where Utah is positioned as far as the manufacturing of products to an international market. And I really just want to validate that when we talk about putting Utah on the footprint on a nation or global scale for our ability to distribute and make good product, Utah is definitely a manufacturing hub. And not only the hub for the manufacturing, but distribution. So I'm excited on that level, especially for your business, Nate. But thanks again for everybody that got involved, and thanks for coming, Nate, for joining us.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see everybody tomorrow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, thank you, guys. See ya.
Bye.